In several places in the Bible, certain figures are ascribed ages that are older than the maximum lifespan of modern humans. How are we to understand these extended old ages? Find out on this episode of Ancient Egypt and the Bible. Most people know of the long ages of the people mentioned in Genesis 5 and 11. But they can also be found in other places in Scripture, like the lives of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But they're also ascribed to Israelites living in Egypt. For example, Amram in Exodus 6:20. Now, theologians have offered several explanations for the extreme old ages. And then we'll cover those, say, most common explanations, and then we're going to get into what I think those ages represent. Now, the first interpretation is the so-called literal interpretation. American young earth creationists and those who hold to American biblical chronology claim that these ages are meant to be read literally. However, that quickly runs afoul of the recorded history, particularly as it relates to the histories of Egypt and Sumer. And there's also an archaeological problem with this interpretation. Archaeologists haven't found skeletons at Avaris or Canaan that show signs of extended old age. From the skeletons of centenarians that are alive today, medical pathologists see signs of extended old age through a receding forehead and chin. But such signs are absent in the bones excavated from those presumed to have Israelite ancestry. Now, there's a second interpretation called the numerology interpretation. One of the key advocates of this view is Kenton Sparks. Sparks notes that all the ages in Genesis 5 end in either 0, 2, 5, 7, or 9. He states the chance of this is so small, 0.00000006%, that it must imply a numerological meaning of the ascribed ages. But there are some serious problems with this view. The first problem is that this numerology only seems to apply to Genesis 5. Genesis 11 breaks that pattern, with the ages from, say, the Masoretic text ending in 0, 3, 4, 5, 8, and 9, or, in the Septuagint, 0, 3, 4, 5, and 9. So this is not a pattern that's being consistently applied. So to state for it to be numerology for Genesis 5, based upon that particular pattern of endings of the ages, would seem to demand that the similar pattern would also have to apply to Genesis 11. But the fact is, when you only have 8 or 9 generations to any genealogy, you are equally unlikely to get an even distribution of ages across every final digit, because of an equally low number of the statistical sampling. The second problem is that it doesn't seem to apply to other old ages outside of Sparks' cherry-picked data. For example, Kohath lives to 133 years, Exodus 6:18. So, unfortunately, as this mathematical formula seems attractive on the surface, it's really just special pleading. Okay, now, how I think we should interpret the old ages of, say, Genesis 5, 11, Exodus, and the Patriarchs is through something called the clan interpretation. The idea of the clan interpretation gets its impetus from the fact that the Israelites were a clan-based society. In this view, each person represents the lifespan not of an individual, but of an entire clan. And Just like regular people, clans are born, persist for a time, reproduce, and eventually die off. And the clan is named after the most important member of the clan, called a progenitor. So in effect, the Long Ages represent groups of people where the intermediary members are excluded from being mentioned. As such, the progenitor or clan chief is given credit for the longevity of the clan. So when Jacob talks to the king of Egypt in Genesis 47:9, he takes credit for the 130 years of the clan's lifespan. Now, we have to understand that clans can persist for hundreds of years. This is not a new or radical thought. There are Scottish clans that are today over 900 years old. Furthermore, we also need to account for other Eastern practices in relation to clans. Most notable is the practice of honorific transposition. A progenitor gets the credit for making of a new clan. However, when that clan was originally created, may not coincide with that progenitor. For example, it can be assigned to a younger son in place of the elder, less important son. For example, Terah is credited with bearing a new clan at age 70, Genesis 11:26, even though Abraham was born when Terah was 130, Genesis 11:32, 12 verse 4. So then, when we approach genealogies like that found in Exodus 6, we have to realize that a genealogy of only 3 generations is not sufficient to grow the Israelites into large numbers that would pose a threat to Egypt, per Exodus 1:7 and 1:9. So we must be dealing here with members of a genealogy that cover many generations and omit unimportant intermediaries. In conclusion, it is clear from the texts that the genealogies in the Bible are not complete, and therefore, the extended Old Ages cannot represent the lifetime of single individuals. They are the aggregated time or longevity of entire clans. So, anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something and enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.